It's the Mornings on Horseback podcast. Now, here's your host, Kevin Meyer.
I ran southern yearling grass cattle in the mountains of southeastern Wyoming. They would arrive in the spring and spend the summer getting fat off the alpine grass out of the heat and the insects of their native ranges. Most of the fences in that country had been built in the early 1900s to deter short-legged Hereford cattle the ranches were raising at that time, at least in those spots where a fence could be built. In many places, a couple wires strung loosely between two rock outcroppings were what constituted the barrier between pastures and even neighboring outfits. Perhaps those fences held in those old-time cattle, but they did little to deter the long-eared Brahma cross steers I was running from traveling wherever they desired. Several of my neighbors ran the same type of cattle, and between the fences and the rough nature of the topography, gathering in the fall was always an adventure. It would not be uncommon for the first gather of a pasture to only produce 75% of the total number that had been turned out. The next 15% would be found in bunches of 20 to 30 head in the next week or so. The last 10% were finally found anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months later in groups of 2 and 3, hiding in the dark timber and rock outcroppings, scattering like quail at the sight of a rider. Amongst the neighbors, we referred to this as hunting season, and we would help each other in the pursuit, confident that if we found some of theirs, hopefully some of ours would be with them. One fall, just after my first gather, I was scheduled to conduct a horse clinic in the rolling grass-covered hills of the Sandhills of Nebraska. And as I pulled out of the ranch and started down the long county road toward town, my neighbor, Wink Anderson, happened to be coming the other way. We pulled up our rig's driver's window to driver's window, as is the custom in ranch country, shut off the rattling diesel engines so conversation would be possible. "How'd your gather go?" Wink asked. "Really good," I answered, "only 56 short." "Hey, good for you. Must be that clean living," he quipped. "I still need to find a couple hundred. When you get back, maybe we'll team up on them." We visited for a few more minutes and then parted ways. 2 days later, sitting on the porch of my clinic host, staring out across the sea of grass stretching from his yard to the horizon across Nebraska and beyond, we talked of horses and weather and the cattle business. When I told him of my great fortune of only missing 56 yearlings, he shook his head in disbelief. "Kev," he said, "I don't know how you do it. If I'm missing even one, I'll lose sleep until I find it." On the drive home after the clinic had finished, I reflected on just how vast and expansive, varied land America really is, and just as varied as the way cattle are managed across that expanse. What seems normal to one area would be completely foreign to a rancher in another. The type of cattle, the type of horses, the type of cowboy, all vary depending on terrain, climate, and even traditions. From the palmetto thickets of Florida to the rainy far northwest, from the frozen winters of North Dakota to the baked deserts of the southwest and all points in between, there isn't just one way to start your morning on horseback. Hey gang, welcome to the Mornings on Horseback podcast. We hope this finds you in good health and high spirits. It's been quite a while since we've spoken last, and we sure look forward to catching up. It's been a crazy few months across this land with floods and fires and now freezing temperatures and snow where it doesn't seem to belong. If during any of this you or someone you know in the ag, cowboy, or horse industry has been injured or suffered a tragedy, know that the Hal Coker Memorial Buckaroo Benefit Fund is here to help. The HCM BBF helps with emergency funds for medical bills, vehicle payments, or household bills to get those in need through the hardest of times. Go to hcmbbf.org to fill out an application for aid or to donate to help the cause. My old friend Jake Nichols has a streaming morning news show, and I join him every Tuesday morning around 8:30, where we try to solve the world's problems one cowboy idea at a time. You can find that show at cowboystatedaily.com or look on Facebook or X for The Morning Show with Jake. If you miss it live, you can listen later as a podcast wherever you find podcasts. Just search The Morning Show with Jake from Cowboy State Daily, and be sure to sign up for the Cowboy State Daily newsletter. It's free and keeps you up to date with all the goings-on in Wyoming. YouTube is quickly replacing television as the go-to information and entertainment source in America, and I'm quite certain the whole world. Whether it be trying to figure out how to fix a lawnmower, cook a turkey, or watch full-length movies and TV shows, you can find a video to fulfill whatever mood you're in. And often while scrolling, you will find something you didn't realize that was missing from your life. I found one such YouTube channel called The Bundy Ranch. It follows and is filmed by the Bundy Ranch cowboys themselves on their desert ranch in southern Nevada. The best way I can describe it is like that show The Deadliest Catch, but on horseback. With GoPros strapped to their cowboy hats, you get to ride along as they find, catch, and load wild desert cattle. I reached out to them and today have a visit with Arden Bundy.
Oh, weather's great. There's just, it's kind of a little bit of overcast, but it's rodeo day, so there's a lot of people in town getting ready to rope, so it's going to be a good day.
Oh, shoot, great. And what town is that in?
Mesquite, Nevada.
Mesquite, okay. Yeah, been there, through there many a time.
Yeah.
Many a time, and rodeo day is always a fun day, so we better we better get you out there.
Yeah, I took an hour or so off just for this, so we're good.
Okay, perfect. Are you going to be roping in it, or are you putting the rodeo on?
I'll be roping with my wife this afternoon, so it'll be fun.
Oh, great. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of get into, before we get into the YouTube channel, give us a little bit of an overview of your guys' operation, because it's much different ranching out there on the desert than it is, especially up here in the northern ranges. And so one of the first questions I know that people will have once we get into this is, and they go watch the YouTube videos, is why do they do it the way they do it?
Yeah, well, especially over here in kind of this desert country like we ranch in, most places they can run a certain amount of cows per acre per year. Mm-hmm. And our acres here, people won't believe it, but it takes one cow, it takes 100 acres for one cow here. Mm-hmm. And so that's just how the range is here. Our ranch is 650,000 acres. It's one of the biggest ranches around this area. Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, how many cows can you run? I was like, well, we should only run about 600 because it's crazy for people to think, but that's how bad and how hard this country is to ranch on. Is a cow needs 100 acres for a year to survive here. Mm-hmm. And some places, one cow needs 1 acre in a lot of places, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, so I don't know what my ancestors thought about when they came out west, and they thought this was a great place, but, you know, especially leaving all that grass that they left, we're happy to be here, and we've been surviving all these years here ranching in this desert.
Well, and how long has your family been there? I know it's a legacy ranch.
Yeah, I'm 6th generation here.
Wow.
So we've been here a long time. My family came across with the Mormon pioneers from Nebraska area up in that country in Missouri, and came out and settled originally the Arizona Strip area, and the ranch is out there. I don't know if you know where that is. Mm-hmm. Then slowly we've moved over to the Nevada side over here in Mesquite now. So. Well, it's been in our family.
Well, and I have a theory about how a lot of these desolate places got homesteaded and settled. I've always believed after a long journey across the West, at some point, the wife got up one morning and said, "This is as far as I'm going."
Yeah, I think so too. You know, that was kind of a joke we always say, you know, that and women they came across there, and they put up with it for hundreds of miles, and one day they said, "No, we're done."
Yeah,
and that's where they landed.
Yeah. I've always thought that about all the desert regions, even in Wyoming. So. Yeah. I guess generally speaking, what most people think of when they think of a cattle ranch is you get your cattle gathered in the fall and ship your calves, and then you calve them in the spring, and then you put your bulls in, and you have a big branding, and then put your bulls in, then pull your bulls out. But that's not really kind of what you guys do, is it?
No, not here on our ranch. Most people do. And I think the biggest reason for that is we run an open range program here, and it's all year round. So our cows, and here's the thing, like I said, our cows need 100 acres to live off of per cow. And so trying to put them in a pastured area, especially in this desert where they're eating the browse, it's hard. They need room to move, they need space. And so we do have about 30%, 40% of our cattle that we gather. You could say as a normal ranch, we have a roundup and we push them to the corral and do our thing. But we got, a little over 50% of our cattle that are out far parts of the range trying to find feed. And I mean, they're basically like deer. They're wild, Mm-hmm. And so that's where we start trapping and doing our thing. And I think that's where we're special to be able to have that, because on a normal ranch, I call them normal ranches. They're mostly money-making ranches. We're not really a money-making program. We have nice, calm cattle, and we're smart with it. We would maybe make some money off this program, but most ranchers, their highlight of their whole year ranching is 2 times: branding time, and when they get to gather the cattle. And every once in a while, there's one of those maverick or one of those mean cows that don't want to come in, and they got to rope it. Mm-hmm. That's their highlight of their whole year.
Yeah.
And for us, we get to do it every day. Mm-hmm. We get to rope these wild cattle and harvest the calves off them and have fun doing it. And so we're blessed to be able to do it. I always make jokes, you got black cattle, you're boring, but you're in the money. You're richer than us, but your life's a little more boring.
Oh, absolutely. And but really the only reason we get into this business is to have fun and have good stories when we're in the retirement home.
Yeah, and we got a lot of them, but at the end of the day, we're just grateful to be able to continue doing ranching and feeding America, because it's getting harder to do it every day. The profit's definitely getting harder and smaller, and so it's definitely a dying breed. It's just sad.
Mm. Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about. I mentioned in the intro where I came across you guys and why it was so interesting to me. And what I relate it to is it's the cowboy version of that TV show Deadliest Catch.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's really the same thing over and over again, but there's just little subtle differences in every one that you catch and every group of cattle that you come across. And then it's just always the suspense of, is it going to work out? And you guys are great about showing when it doesn't work out and showing when things don't go right, as well as showing when it goes just exactly how you want. And I want to get into the actual production of it later. But for right now, I tell you what, when I watch that show, I just think about how much fun it is and how few people ever get to experience running out around that rough country and that weird thought you have in your head when you throw your rope at something, especially if it's something big. Yeah. And when you see it go around their head and you're thinking, great. And then there's that little sliver of your body that thinks, now the work begins.
Yep. Yes, sir. I want to kind of start off with hitting on a point before I hit all those things, which I think is really important to hit. And the most important is if you guys do, well, first, thank you for watching our videos, and I appreciate you watching them and enjoying them. But the one thing that I really want to point on before we get started is God and why we. If you notice our videos, if you watch them, we pray before every time we go out. And people often wonder, why we pray? Why do you pray before you go? Why do you put it on the TV? Why do you do those things? And the reason is because when we leave the ranch to go catch these cattle, we don't know if it's going to be our day to come home or not.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that God knows that He's in charge from day one and the moment we go. And we are very happy to say from this moment, and thanks to God, in the about 15 years that I've been doing this, we've never had anybody hurt bad enough that they had to go to the hospital.
Oh, that's great. And that's an amazing stat. Good for you guys.
And that's one thing that we hold our heads on because it gets scary. And that feeling that you just talked about of, ooh, there's a big one. And right as that rope comes tight, you say, crap, what did I just do? and I don't know if you notice a lot of our videos, but most of us, we tie on, meaning people that don't know they're listening. That's when you hard tie your rope to your horn. Basically, it ain't coming undone unless you're cutting it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we've done that is my dad has always taught us, and his dad taught him, that if you're mad enough to rope it, you're man enough to keep it. And he always, as a little kid, he says, if you catch something and I find it with a rope around its neck, I'm going to whip your butt.
Mm-hmm.
And we were so scared to get a whooping that we would tie on and not let go of that thing. And we learned to handle those bulls on the end of those ropes better.
Mm-hmm.
But people, you're crazy, And I said, hey, if you're man enough to rope a big bull, you better be man enough to hang on to it, because there's that moment of fear when that rope goes tight and you're like, man, I just want to let go of this thing. I did the fun part. Now I just want to get away from it,
Yeah.
But,
and being a northern range guy, I've actually done both. I started out tying hard and fast, and then I went to dallying with a long rope for a multitude of reasons, but most of the stuff that I rope on is really young horses. Mm-hmm. And it gives me a little bit of maneuverability, but absolutely, because out where you guys are, to your dad's point, yeah, it's bad if he finds one with a rope trailing behind it, but you guys might not find it. If one gets away, you might not find it until next year, and there's a lot of bad things that can happen with a rope dangling around a cow's neck.
100%. We've had people come out before and they don't tie on, they lose a rope, and we've actually found some of those cattle dead. They get tangled up and you don't find them, and there's your profit right there, just lost.
Yep.
And so that's just something we always kind of did, but everyone's style is different, and I respect everyone's style because it's all about. To me, it's not about the different styles. It's about keeping the legacy going. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to hear. And that's where this wild cowboying goes for us. Is it's a legacy. We're teaching our kids to do it, and I hope that till the day we die, there's wild cows to be roped somewhere, because we love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's so much fun to do it. Even when you have a bad day doing it, it's kind of like fishing. Bad day fishing is
yes,
better than a good day working, and you kind of get to do both. And I apologize to them. Why don't you go ahead and tell us who else besides you is doing this, mainly on the videos. And I know that you have a lot, especially of the youngsters coming up. You guys are teaching that next generation to come up. But who are the main players in most of your videos?
So the main players would be my father, Cliven. He's the owner of the ranch, and then it would be me. My name's Arden Bundy. And then where it would go from there would my brother-in-law, Clancy Cox. He's kind of the ranch manager there for the ranch. And him and his boys, if you guys watch, his boys are just, I think they're 9 and 12 or 11. And they're out there doing it with us. It's so fun. And then the other one would be one of our other ranch hands is Cash Burnside. And then we have a lot of other people that come on every once in a while that aren't full-timers, but another one would be Riley Ballard. And then that's the main crew right there. So we got about 4 or 5 of us that are main hardcore crew, and then every once in a while we'll bring buddies or friends along.
So one of the things that I've noticed in talking about the different ways of doing things is when you guys trip your cattle, which you guys are all very, very good at getting them tripped down and getting them tied down, you guys are... I've always been a guy that I wanted to get my horse up just as close as I could to those cattle. Now, this is going back to kind of, the difference in northern cattle and those desert cattle down there. They're quite a bit lankier and have a lot more run to them, and quite honestly, quite a bit more fight. But I notice you guys, when you guys trip them down, you guys might be out there 25, 30 feet on the end of your rope, and you bail off and get down that rope to tie those cattle. Is that just a function of the fact that once you get one trip down, you have about 3 minutes before they get their air and decide to stand back up?
I would cut that from 3 minutes to maybe 3 seconds. So you're 100% right. It's about when they get down, that's your opportunity. You don't got long. If they're going to get back up, they're going to get back up mad. And you have that short window of running down that rope and getting on them. And if you miss that window, you might be on the ground with a big bull or something, and you're stuck there. You gotta make your decision. Either commit to try to get this bull back on the ground or try to beat the bull to your horse, and so that's one thing that is different from us than other videos or other ranches that I've seen. And people call us crazy, but it was just kind of how we grew up doing it. So it's not really anything unnatural to us. But most people will tag team, meaning someone heads one and other person heel it behind them. Mm-hmm. And people are like, you guys don't do that. You guys are one-on-one, and you guys take care of it all by yourself, which is crazy. And, growing up, that was just how we did it. Mm-hmm. And the way we learned to trip them, we try to trip them. I mean, you got to put the rope around their legs and make them tip over without hurting them as much as you can. And then, like you said, you got to run down that rope, and it's usually 25, 30 feet. You got not very long, because it's actually when they get up from doing it, they're harder to trip because they kind of learn their balance. And so you got a couple tries, and that's about it. And usually another reason why we're doing it so fast is because we usually got another one we got to go rope. Mm-hmm. And so we'll tie that one down, run down the rope, tie it down, and get back on and go rope another one. If we don't have to go rope another one, then it's a lot easier. It's not such a rush,
Yeah, and boy, I've been in that same situation several times where you've got a little bunch found and you get one tied down, and yeah, it's almost like tying one down at the NFR. You're getting that tied just as quick as you can, yep, because there's more fun to be had. I mean work. I mean there's more work to be done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your guys' horses a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Just good ranch-style horses that absolutely 100% know their job. But talk a little bit about how hard that country is on them, and when do you guys raise your horses, or do you buy most of them?
So we buy most of our horses. We usually make our own horses. I mean, there's nobody else really out there training horses to do what we do. Mm-hmm. But we're not really in the program or have the setup to raise our own horses. Mm-hmm. We actually are in the process right now of trying to raise a stud and getting our own string of horses, because frankly, I mean, you know this better than me, ranch horses aren't easy to find anymore.
No.
Everyone's breeding for performance and competition, and it's hard to get a beefy, good, strong ranch horse. And so we're kind of in the process of doing that right now. But most of our horses we have now, we usually bought them as colts and raised them up to be what they are for the most part. And people in this country, people want to come cowboying with us all the time, and they're like, I got this horse, and I don't care if he lives or dies type attitude. Mm-hmm. And because he's not smart. And I say, you don't want to bring your most expensive high-dollar roping horse out here. You don't really want to do that. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to bring a horse that you can't trust, because your whole trust is in that horse when you're running across this country. And when you catch an animal, you need to trust that horse with your life, mm-hmm, because you don't want, so there's a fine line. You want a horse that you can trust, but you don't really want a horse that's gonna lose you thousands of dollars if they accidentally hit the wrong hole or fall in the wrong spot. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Our horses are all very important to us, because if you guys watch our videos, or the listeners watch their videos, our country's rough, mm-hmm, and there's a lot of rocks and rough country, and it takes a real horse to really cross that country full 40 miles an hour and you got to have full confidence in that horse, because if you don't, one, you're never going to catch these cattle because they're not slowing down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not going to slow down for you. And if you're scared or have not confidence in your horse, it makes the ride very scary.
Oh, for sure. And
yeah,
the other part is that horse has to be okay with working all day and maybe get a drink once a day, but probably not.
Yeah, no, most of our horses don't get a drink until the end of the day, and they will go. Some of them will run. They'll run for miles, and it's really about heart.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just take this opportunity to share a little story about one of my horses. He's my top hand horse. Anyway, he's Hancock, and he's a ranch horse, but he has something that's called heart, and all our horses have that, because if they don't, they'll never get you to that last one. When you'll really know what a horse is after you rope about 4 or 5 calves or bulls in a row,
mm-hmm.
and there's one more to rope, and he's out there about a half a mile running. And if you can get on that horse and go, and that horse can get you there, that's heart. Most horses will start giving out. They'll start walking. They'll tip over. And I have a horse, and he gives me his whole heart every time. And it doesn't matter how far we need to go or how fast we need to get there. He gets me there, and when he gets there, he might be done, but he'll get me there every time. And I think that's really important, especially in this type of country, is you need a horse that will go, but you need a horse that actually cares.
And there is nothing more disappointing and infuriating at the same time, where you are just almost there where you can throw your rope and you feel that horse run out of gas or heart.
Oh, man.
And then you just see that steer running off into the horizon.
Oh, man, it's the worst. That is the worst. And we've all had it happen to us. There's nothing worse than that, but there's also nothing greater than when a horse kicks in, especially when you're out there about, it's out there about 40 feet, just far enough where you can't catch it. And you're just like, you just tell that horse, just kick him up, and he just grabs a second gear out of nowhere and says, I'm going to give you one shot to catch it. If you miss it, we're done.
Yeah.
And when that horse kicks it into gear, gets you there, you catch it, and that horse just slams on his brakes and he's done, There's nothing better than that feeling, but that feeling of dang, my I can't get that last one, and you watch him run away, man, yep, that's a bad feeling, brother.
Well, and there was another trust situation in one of your videos, and I've watched all of them. I don't remember which one it was exactly.
Well, thank you for that.
But I believe it was you. In fact, I'm sure it was you that you were down in kind of a wash, and you tripped a bull, and he got up on you.
Oh yeah, that was me.
And you actually climbed up the hill a little bit to get away from him, which I would have climbed. I would have climbed higher, but that's me. And your horse, I've seen horses in that situation sell out and say, "Okay, you can finish this by yourself," and just leave. And by golly, your horse, he stuck right in there. And as I recall, he let you sneak around that bull and get back on him.
So what that, I think in that situation, that was my horse Rojo. Rojo's he's a special spirit, that horse, but he is a good horse. And these horses are really meant to keep that rope tight.
Mm-hmm.
And when that bull got up, it was no one's fault. Just that bull beat me to the up position, and he came at me, and I got out of the way. And he actually came over. I was heading over to get on my horse, and that bull came at me and that horse and hit that horse. Luckily, the horns went around. The horns were big enough; they went around his front chest.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically just head butted that horse, and that horse kind of took up the wash. Well, luckily, I was tied on, and so it drugged that bull was hanging back, and that horse held that rope tight enough so I can go and tail that bull down.
Mm-hmm. I actually never got back on my horse. Because every time I tried to get over next to my horse, the bull would come at us. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. What I actually did was that bull was hanging on the end of that rope, and I knew that horse was going to hold that rope tight. So I snuck up behind that bull, grabbed his tail, and worked my butt off to get that big bull on the ground, and finally did. So,
yeah, well,
that's exactly what you're exactly right. It's important to have a horse that's going to pay attention and not just say, I'm done, I'm out of here,
Yeah, and I had remembered that episode, but that's really good teamwork, and that takes a bunch of trust to go tail a bull down, because if anybody's ever been in that situation, not only is it physically taxing, it's not the funnest situation to be in.
No, and that is one of the most dangerous situations of when you're running down that rope and that big bull gets up on you, and what do? You got to make a decision right then and there.
Yeah.
And when he came at me, I knew I wasn't going to make it back to my horse, and it's dangerous. That's at the end of the day, it's fun and it's exciting, but it is dangerous. And people always ask, the cameras nowadays, they pick up everything, but you were running across that desert, we're going Mach 80, running across there, and we're breathing hard, people are like, well, you guys need to stop drinking Mountain Dew. You guys can't get your breath. And I said, you don't realize how hard of work it is to really, and not just your blood pumping, but running across this desert. You're not just sitting there, just sitting in your seat hanging on. You're jumping, you're balancing, the whole way.
And swinging your rope.
And the nice thing is, I'm actually going to make a video here soon. The new cameras now, the GoPros that we wear on our hats, they got something called stabilization, whatever mode, and it stabilizes it. I'm going to turn that off one day and make a video and watch really how crazy it is. People will, how much our bodies actually move when we're running through that.
Because, that'll be great. That'll be great.
People like, man, you guys stay so steady and just stay in one spot. I'm like, man, that's all the camera doing that.
Yeah, and, with the heavy breathing part, if someone has never been in a situation where they have a huge adrenaline surge followed by an adrenaline dump, it absolutely takes your breath away.
Yeah, and we're, people, it's just us. We don't drink alcohol. We don't do these things to get that adrenaline. We don't do drugs or smoke or anything like that. And our drug is roping. We love that rush of running down that rope and getting on that thing and tying them down and fighting with these cattle. Like, that's our rush. That's our drug. And we just love it. And we decided when we were doing this YouTube, we've been doing this for a long time, but it was just recently that I said, hey, we're out here doing it. Why not just put something on our head and push play and just see if people actually enjoy it, because we're out here doing it anyways. It's not really much out of our time. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we just kind of put GoPros on one time, and we just kind of went out and kind of did our thing. And then we all had fun as just our little group of friends going back through and watching them. Because when we're usually cowboying, we're never really all together. If you guys watch our videos, these cows, they spread out. So we all just take after one. And all we have is the other person's word of what happened, and now we can have it all on video and prove it, and we can have fun watching them together. And that's when someone says, you should put these on YouTube. And I said, I'll learn my best on how to do it.
What's YouTube?
That's kind of how it went. Yeah, that's about how it went. So,
and so do you do the editing and putting these videos together yourself?
I do. I tried to find an editor for a long time, but the problem was I hired 4 or 5 editors. They were supposed to give me their chances and do my editing, but the problem was they weren't cowboys, and they didn't know the cowboy culture, and so they were showing stuff that wasn't really what people wanted to see. People want to see the wild cow catching the rope, and they were showing stuff that they thought was cool but wasn't really and so then I was like, well, I got to find a cowboy editor. Yeah, imagine how easy that is to do.
Yeah.
So I finally buckled down one day and I said, you know what? I'm going to lock myself in this room. I'm going to get an editing app and I'm going to learn and teach myself. And it took me 12 hours straight to do my first video. And it just, now I can try to make a video, in 4 hours or so, 3-4 hours, I'll have a video done. But I don't think people realize how much footage there really is. If there's 4 cowboys, 4 videos, they're usually about an hour long each, and I have to cut all those down to a 30-minute video for you guys. So it's a lot of work, and I really wish I didn't have to do it. So if there's any cowboy editors out there that know how to edit videos, let me know.
Yeah, you bet. Well, hopefully you can get some help with that, and maybe they can help to edit podcasts. But
yeah, that would be awesome.
I tell you what I really like in some of those videos is where, say you will have one caught, and then you'll see the video maybe from Cash blowing past you to get the next one.
Yeah.
And then you'll cut back and show the one that you roped from Cash's camera.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that you show those different aspects so where not only are you getting the first person, but you get to see it from a distance as well.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I would really like. I really would like to have somebody come out, but I have a drone, and imagine an air view of us doing this. That would be fantastic. But that's another problem. I can't really rope a cow and fly the drone. So I think I'm gonna sacrifice my fun and try to video Clancy and Cash and them with the drone a couple times and see if I can get some good footage, because people need to see the big picture. There's a lot of my viewers are people that have no idea what cowboying really is, and the other half are cowboys and they want to see the big picture. So it's a win-win both ways, because it's what we do is something that a lot of people don't ever get to experience in their life, which is sad, but it's fun. We enjoy it.
Oh yeah, and it's hard. You can kind of see in the videos. Certain videos you can see it better than others, but that drone would really show how, unlike in a rodeo arena, the cattle you guys are roping, they are not running straight.
No.
They're changing leads, and that's always really, really hard, especially the horses that you guys are riding. I know the horses that I'm on, when they get to watching whatever they're chasing change leads, they'll start changing leads. And that can really throw off your swing and your timing and everything else. And so then it's all about picking your spot and kind of thinking ahead of that animal.
Yeah, and jumping bushes, dodging cactuses, jumping rocks. People are like, man, you guys miss sometimes, and I'm like,
yeah.
Hey, if we were catching every time, we would not be here. We'd be in the rodeo.
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy, but we try our best just to have fun, even if we miss and we give each other's crap about it all the time.
Oh yeah.
That's part of it. That's part of it. If these clean every time, it would be cool, I guess, but then we wouldn't have that fun of throwing another loop, and getting after there. And you just got to realize that anybody that's actually roped something in the desert in that situation of a wild cow knows that and respects, hey, it's just not easy. It's a whole different thing. Yeah.
And I spent most of my time in rough country, but it wasn't that big old open desert like you guys are in. It was more of a alpine mountain, and I can remember I had a bunch of southern yearlings, and I had a young kid working for me, and in this one pasture, there was really only one kind of open meadow where we could get one lined out. And so wherever we found one that needed to be doctored, we'd have to kind of drive him over to that spot, and we called it the racetrack.
There you go.
Because we had to have him roped. It was probably, 200 yards long. And so we had to have him roped by the end, because if we didn't get him roped by the end, he was back in the trees.
Oh, man.
And so that was always fun, but it always makes you rope a little bit better if you have that pressure.
Oh yeah, and it just makes it that much more exciting, Oh yeah, and that's kind of where our saying is. Our saying came from whoop and spur. A lot of people think it's whip, but it's not. It's whoop, and that is a word in the vocabulary, in the dictionary. It means to holler and excitement. And when we cowboy, even before the YouTube, when we hit these header cows, we would all start whooping, we all start hollering, because it would just get almost the excitement, the spirit going. whooping, spurring. We'd catch all these cows, and that's what it's all about. It's about, it wouldn't be as fun if we didn't have our family or our friends or our buddies there, and that's where the real excitement comes in, and the competition. We're all very competitive. We don't really show up much on the TV, but we're all very competitive. Who roped the biggest? Who roped the fast? Who roped the most? We have a lot of fun with it because that's what it's really about. Just having fun. If it wasn't fun, we wouldn't be doing it.
Oh yeah, and that's the best part about cowboying is you're supporting each other and you're great friends, but giving each other a hard time about things that maybe didn't go right, and it's always competitive whether there's money involved or not.
Yeah, I agree, and then that's how we always look at it too. It's just we're there with friends and family, and that's what matters. And I want another thing, just so everyone knows. If you watch our videos, I promise you there's not one thing that's staged. It is just us. That is how we are. I love Cash as my best buddy. We went through school together. Cash does some funny, dumbest things I've ever seen in my life, but I'll tell you, that's Cash. Those are not planned. That's just how he is, and that's what makes the video so special is, Clancy, as you see him there, kind of a, he's funny, but he's kind of a more serious type guy. That's how he is, you know. You get him out of his shell, he's great, and that's how we all are. And that's what makes, I think that's why people really enjoy our videos, because they know that if they see us, we went down to Las Vegas for the Cowboy Christmas during the NFR. I don't know if any of y'all been down to this big convention, but we went down there and we had, a lot of people notice us and shake our hand, and they're like, you guys are just like your videos. And I said, well, the videos are exactly who we are. We kind of just push play and go on with our day,
That's great. I think that's great that you guys went down there and that you're getting recognized. That shows that you're getting a pretty widespread, following, I think. And just from the first time I saw one of your videos, you guys have gained a bunch of followers just from that first time I saw you.
Yeah, we're definitely, like I said, I'm surprised that people want to watch us, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I'm not, because you got the timing just right. The TV show Yellowstone came out, and there's kind of been a resurgence of interest in the cowboy world. And here, all of a sudden, perfect timing, are some authentic cowboys doing actual cowboy work. And I think it's awesome. Back to the horses just for 1 second, because I forgot to ask this. Do you guys shoe your horses, or are you just running real hard-footed barefoot?
No, we shoe them.
Okay.
We, I had my first horse was a Mustang, and my dad gave it to me when I was 8 years old, not broke at all. And you'll actually see him on the show every once in a while. They call him Chamaco. He's a little black horse. I now gave him to the ranch as a kid horse now, but he never got shoes on him until, years down the road. Mm-hmm. And I regret it. I should have never shot him because he had the toughest, hardest feet. Mm-hmm. And I shot him when I was, I don't know, I was like 12, I think. I did them by myself because I wanted to be like the other cowboys and have horseshoes on my horse.
Gotcha.
And I messed him up because now he needs shoes. But all our horses, we shoe them all. But I kind of wish we didn't. But the problem is unless we're raising our own horses where they're out here all the time, most horses, they can't really last this much in this country without shoes on them.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is finding horses that are bred with those really good hard feet now, because being out where you guys are, if you throw a shoe, your day is done.
Your whole and probably a couple weeks, because it doesn't take long for once they throw a shoe that they start getting hurt.
Yeah. But that's, so I guess you just become really, really good at putting shoes on horses to where they fit tight and they're not reaching up and grabbing, because in that country, you can't leave much shoe out or you're going to lose it.
No, you're going to lose it. And you make sure to put, I thought it was the funniest thing the first time because I got into team roping a little bit recently just for the fun of it. Mm-hmm. And, ended up getting me a horse that was more not for the ranch but more for the arena. And anyways, I had a kid there, he wanted to make some money, and he shod my horse for me. I said okay, and he only put 3 nails in it, and I was laughing. And I was like when you gonna finish shoeing my horse? He's like, what do you mean? You're missing, you didn't put all the nails in. He says, that's how I do all the horses here. And I said, you're ripping it. Why? He's like, well, they don't need all 4. They don't need, all 8 nails in when they're just roping and I thought that blew my mind as a wild cow, a guy that's always rode out in the desert.
Yep.
We wish there was more holes because
yeah.
The worst thing is when you throw a shoe and it's just funny how, the ranch world and the rodeo world and even, the ranching in different parts of the world, up where you're at, area Idaho and stuff like that, there's more buckaroos and the buckaroo style. And it's crazy how the world, there's so many styles and so many ways of doing things. And it really interests me in how all that works.
It really is. And when you get into it, you realize that every different region, they do that stuff for a reason.
Yep.
And maybe over time, some of it has just become, image or whatever. But when you get down to the core actual doing the job, there is always a reason why they do it the way they do it.
Yeah. Why it was created,
Yeah, and, I always think back to the old timers, all the wrecks they had to get in to realize what way actually worked.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Last thing on that, on the actual cow catching, and I think it's very wise that you guys don't show it, but I'm curious, and listeners to this podcast will remember that I had an episode with Tim Cox, and he was talking about bringing wild cattle out of Arizona and New Mexico rough country and tipping those bulls' horns and dehorning them, and why they do it and how they do it. What kind of saw do you guys use to get to make it so where you can safely lead those bulls out?
Okay, so you're right. We don't show that just because, a lot of sensitive people out there, they don't understand it.
Yep.
So we kind of skip that part. But I remember, when we first started roping these big bulls, we started experimenting how we're going to cut these horns off out in the middle of this desert, And I don't know if you guys have ever heard those. This is just funny what we started with, but they're like a little chain. They're cut trees, and you wrap around the chain. You go back and forth really fast.
Yep.
So we started with trying those out for a while, and that didn't work very good. What else did we try? We tried to bring like kind of tree trimmer type things, and they didn't work either. And finally, what we now use, which every cowboy has one on their saddle, is it's a tree saw that you trim the trees with. It's a handheld size. They're about a foot. When they're closed, they're about a foot long is all. And that's what we use. And that's because they'll fit in our saddles or our leggings. And we can whip them out and they stay sharp. And we tip those horns not only for our safety and our horse's safety, but also for the other cow's safety. Because when you rope one of those big bulls or cows with those sharp horns, imagine their whole life they're out there wild fighting everything, and then you throw them in a corral and they start wanting to fight everything. Well, those animals that they're fighting can't get away from them, like on the desert. And so we've had bulls that if we don't cut their horns, they'll get in there and hurt a bunch of cattle, the day we let them go. And so we make sure to tip everything that's going to hurt anything, we tip them.
Yeah, and that's really good. And I know that in a lot of those videos, you guys have actually mentioned that. And I think that's great for people to understand that it's for the safety of the cattle. It's for the safety of everybody.
Yeah, and we try to tell people it's like a fingernail. They grow back and they heal up. They're just like a fingernail. I know there's a lot of blood sometimes, but at the end of the day, they do heal over just like a fingernail, and they do grow back a little bit too. So we try to mention that just to help people understand more, because unless you're in the Western world, there's a lot of things you don't understand why stuff like that happens.
Oh yeah, it's so foreign, and it's great. And I thank you for showing this little part of your world, and I hope more people have the opportunity to show other parts of the world, but hopefully more and more people watch your guys' videos. But we hope so. You have an entrepreneurial spirit in a grander scheme, don't you?
Yes, sir, I do. I think that's kind of my real passion down deep is is entrepreneurship. I'll tell you a little background of me, I guess. I grew up on the ranch here, grew up in wild cows and out on this desert, and just basically we grew up surviving. You know, we roped cows for our food and our dinner, and we ranched, and we kind of grew up just paying for Christmas type stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turned 18, I served a mission in Chile. I left the country for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to Chile, and I served a mission for my church there. And while I was down there, I learned Spanish, and I learned a lot of culture down there, especially in ranching and stuff down there. And when I got back, I was very concerned with how the ranch was kind of going and everything. And I said, you know what, we need to figure out some ways to finally make a payday out of this place, you know. And so we're not just always surviving, because that was how I grew up, was just barely surviving. And so I went on my way to start doing little different businesses. I started, you know, with diesel trucks, and I invented an exhaust brake called the Bundy exhaust brake, but I recently sold the company. But I invented an exhaust brake, and I sold that company, and then I realized I wanted to get something more into ranching or helping the ranchers out, and so I started a steakhouse in St. George, Utah, called Bundy's Brazilian Steakhouse. And with that being started, it's now helped me be able to connect more with getting beef from ranchers, and slowly helping ranchers be able to actually get a good market for their beef.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that being said, that's where the YouTube came in also. As I said, you know what, we're out here ranching, let's share this, and if we can make a little bit of money to help us pay for, heck, the tires we pop doing it, let's, you know. So I've always had an entrepreneurship kind of mindset of, you know, ranching is great, and I love it, and it's my deep passion is to rope wild cows and to raise beef for America. But the sad thing is right now it doesn't pay very many bills for a lot of people across America, which is sad, because everybody loves eating a steak, but nobody really cares about where it comes from. And so I'm kind of in the business of trying to change that.
Well, I think that's great, and a lot of people in this industry thank you for that, me being one of them.
Thank you.
I know that you have to get to, and we're just going to have to go ahead and agree that we're going to have to do a second part of this sometime.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that, sir.
In the future, because I have many more questions and
Yep.
and many more things that I want you to share with the people, because it's a great story. It's a great family. Hopefully one of these days we'll get to meet in person. But I have just a couple here. Last questions, and you've kind of answered it, but maybe we can put just a little bit of a finer point on it. What does the horse mean to you?
The horse means to me companionship. The horse means to me a partner in accomplishing something that cannot be done without a partner like the horse. And that's the best way I can explain it, because I could say that he's a tool, and I could say that he's part of something to get a job done, but at the end of the day, he is a partner and a companion to me.
Okay, well, Arden, I really appreciate the visit, and we'll have to do this again. Where can people find you online?
So people can find me on, Instagram or Facebook. You can just look up my name, Arden Bundy. But if you guys really want to enjoy watching what we do, go to YouTube, type in The Bundy Ranch, and we're right there. You'll see all our videos. And if you really need to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on any of those, my social medias or anything. And I hope you guys enjoy, and I sure do appreciate this opportunity to be able to talk with you and all these guys out here. So go watch our YouTube, enjoy, remember to whoop and spur, and give God credit, because we wouldn't be here without him.
Thank you to Arden. Please go and check out their YouTube channel. It's worth a watch. Thank you to Tim Cox for our cover art, Wiley and the Wild West for our theme music, and Hoss Peterson for our introduction. Visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Mance Creek Horses and our website, mancecreekhorses.com. Thank you for listening, And until we get to visit again, stay safe.
The hooves of the horses, witching and sweet, is the music earth steals from iron-shod feet. No whisper of lover, no trilling of bird can stir me as hooves of the horses have stirred.